The warning alarms screamed through every corridor of Cathara Station. Commander Zephyrs felt her crystalline body vibrate with fear as she stared at the tactical display. 12 massive warships hung in space around the research station like hungry predators. Their dark hulls blocked out the stars, and weapon ports glowed with deadly energy. How long until they reached us? Zephyrs asked her communications officer, Lyrics. Her forearms moved nervously as she spoke. A habit from her species when stressed. They dropped out of hyperspace 15 minutes ago, Lyrics replied, his own crystal form flickering with worried light patterns. The lead ship is broadcasting demands. They want all our research data, and they want it now. Zephyrs looked around the command center. 847 researchers lived and worked on this station. They were scientists, not soldiers. They studied ancient ruins and dead civilizations, not warfare. Their only weapons were mining tools and emergency equipment. Against a full hegemony battle fleet, they might as well throw rocks. The main screen flickered, and a terrifying face appeared. Admiral Vexstar of the hegemony looked like a nightmare made real. His insect-like features were covered in battle scars, and his compound eyes gleamed with cruel intelligence. When he spoke, his voice sounded like grinding metal. I am Admiral Vexstar. You will surrender all research data on the ancient precursor civilization immediately. You have 1 hour to comply, or we will destroy your station and everyone on it. The transmission cut off, leaving the command center in shocked silence. Zephyrs felt her body dim with despair. The hegemony was known throughout the galaxy for their brutality. They enslaved peaceful species and stripped their worlds bare for resources. They never showed mercy. Send distress calls on all frequencies, Zephyrs ordered. Contact the Collective Fleet Command. Tell them we need immediate assistance. Lyrics worked frantically at his console. After several minutes, he looked up with bad news written across his glowing features. The nearest collective fleet is 6 days away. The hegemony knows our patrol schedules. They planned this attack perfectly. Zephyrs walked to the observation deck and stared out at the enemy ships. The hegemony dreadnoughts were each 3 times larger than the entire research station. Their armor was thick enough to resist most weapons, and their shields could deflect anything the collective had ever built. Worse yet, she could see smaller fighter craft launching from their bays. They were preparing for a full assault. What about civilian evacuation? She asked. Impossible, came the reply from her security chief. They have the station surrounded. Any ship that tries to leave will be destroyed instantly. We are trapped. The first plasma blast hit the station's outer ring 30 minutes later. The entire structure shook, and emergency lights began flashing. Through the transparent aluminum windows, Zephyrs could see sections of the station's hull glowing red-hot where the energy beam had struck. Shields down to 60%, reported the engineering officer. If they keep this up, we have maybe 2 hours before total collapse. Another blast hit, this time closer to the central hub. The lights flickered, and several research labs lost power completely. Screams echoed through the corridors as panicked researchers tried to find safe places to hide. But there were no safe places on a space station under attack by a hegemony fleet. Send another distress call, Zephyrs ordered desperately. Broadcast on every frequency we have. Maybe someone closer will hear us. I am trying, Lyrics said, his hands moving over his controls with increasing urgency. But the hegemony is jamming most of our communications. I can barely get a signal out of the system. The third plasma blast carved a deep gouge along the station's research wing. Zephyrs watched helplessly as an entire laboratory section was torn away and sent spinning into the void. Dozens of irreplaceable research specimens and years of scientific work disappeared in seconds. Admiral Vexstar's face appeared on the screen again. This time he looked pleased with the destruction he was causing. You have 30 minutes remaining, Surrender your data, or we will begin targeting your life support systems. Your people will suffocate slowly in the darkness of space." The transmission ended, and Zephys felt her strength leaving her. She had always believed that intelligence and reason could solve any problem. But the hegemony did not care about intelligence or reason. They only understood force, and the research station had no force to offer. "Commander," Lyrics called out suddenly, "I am detecting something strange on the long-range sensors. There is a ship approaching from the outer system." "One of our patrol boats?" Zephys asked hopefully. "No. The energy signature is unknown. It is not in any of our databases. And Commander, it is moving very fast. Faster than any collective ship should be able to travel." Zephys looked at the tactical display. A single contact was indeed approaching, but it was still too far away to get detailed information. Whatever it was, it would arrive far too late to help them. The hegemony would finish destroying the station long before any rescue could arrive. Another plasma blast hit the station, and this time, the main power grid fluctuated. Emergency power kicked in, but the lights dimmed noticeably. Through the corridors, Zephys could hear the sounds of her people crying out in fear and desperation. "All sections, prepare for emergency protocols," she announced over the station's communication system. "Move to the central core areas. Stay away from the outer hulls." But even as she gave the orders, Zephys knew they were useless. The central core would provide some protection, but not much. When the hegemony decided to finish them, no part of the station would be safe. The unknown ship was still approaching, but it was just one vessel against 12 hegemony dreadnoughts. Even if it was friendly, what could a single ship do against such overwhelming odds? 15 minutes remaining. Admiral Vextar's voice echoed through the station as another blast tore into their hull. "I grow tired of waiting. Perhaps watching your research labs burn will encourage faster cooperation." The next plasma beam was aimed directly at the Xenarchaeology wing, where most of their important discoveries were stored. Zephys watched in horror as centuries of carefully preserved artifacts were vaporized in an instant. The hegemony was not just destroying their station. They were destroying knowledge itself. She closed her eyes and tried to prepare for the end. In a few minutes, Admiral Vextar would lose patience entirely. The hegemony would target the main reactor, and 847 innocent researchers would die for the crime of seeking knowledge. No help was coming. They were alone in the darkness, and the predators were closing in for the kill. Communications Officer Lyrics stared at his display in confusion. Something was wrong with his equipment. It had to be. The readings he was seeing made no sense. "Commander," he called out over the noise of another hegemony plasma blast hitting their shields. "I am detecting a very powerful transmission from the edge of the system. But the signal pattern is unlike anything in our databases." Commander Zephys rushed over to look at his screen. The station shook again as more enemy fire struck their weakening defenses. Through the transparent walls, she could see fires burning in the outer sections where atmosphere was leaking into space. "Show me," she said. Lyrics played the transmission. It was brief, lasting only a few seconds, but it was incredibly strong. The signal had punched through the hegemony, jamming like it was nothing. More importantly, it came from the direction of that unknown ship approaching their position. "Can you decode it?" Zephys asked. "I am trying, but the format is completely alien. It does not match any collective communication protocols. It does not even match hegemony formats. This is something entirely new." Another plasma blast rocked the station. The lights flickered, and several control panels sparked with electrical discharge. They were running out of time quickly. Admiral Vextar would soon order the final attack that would destroy them all. Aboard the hegemony flagship, Admiral Vextar was also studying the strange transmission. His tactical officers were just as confused as the station's crew. The approaching ship did not match any design in their extensive databases. What is the vessel's configuration? Vextar demanded. Unknown, Admiral. His sensor operator replied nervously. The whole design appears to be some kind of predator configuration. Very sleek, very aggressive looking. But the technology readings are impossible. Explain. The ship appears to be much smaller than our dreadnoughts, but its energy output is enormous. The reactor signatures are unlike anything we have encountered. And Admiral, it is traveling at speeds that should tear any normal hull apart. Vextar studied the tactical display with growing interest. In his many years of conquest, he had faced dozens of different alien species. Most were weak and cowardly. Some put up decent fights. But none had ever presented him with technology he could not understand. Time until intercept. He asked, "At current speed, the unknown vessel will reach our position in 43 minutes. But Admiral, there is something else. The ship's approach vector is completely direct. It is not attempting any evasive maneuvers. It is heading straight through our formation." This was either supreme confidence or complete stupidity. Vextar had seen both before, but usually from species he already knew. The approach of this unknown ship was making him uncomfortable, though he would never admit it to his crew. "Signal the unknown vessel," he ordered. "Demand identification and intent." The communications officer tried several times, but received no response. The strange ship continued its direct approach, neither slowing down nor attempting to communicate. Back on Cathara Station, Lyrics was working frantically to decode more transmissions from the approaching vessel. Suddenly, his equipment picked up another signal. This one was different, broader spectrum, and aimed at multiple targets. "Commander, I have another transmission. This one appears to be directed at both us and the Hegemony fleet. And Commander, part of it is in Galactic Standard." "Play it," Zephy's ordered. The message was short and spoken in a voice unlike any they had heard before. It was harsh, angular, with sounds that seemed almost primitive. But the words were clear enough. "Cathara Station. Help coming. Hold position." The command center fell silent. Zephy's felt her crystalline form brighten with the first hope she had felt in hours. Someone was coming to help them, but who? What species could build a ship that moved so fast and broadcast with such power? "Can you respond to them?" she asked Lyrics. "I am trying, but they are not using standard collective communication frequencies. I am not sure they can receive our transmissions." Admiral Vextar had also received the transmission aboard his flagship. His reaction was very different from the station crew's. He was angry. "How dare they?" he snarled. "Some unknown species thinks they can interfere with a hegemony operation. Show them the price of such arrogance." He turned to his tactical officer. "Order attack squadrons 7, 12, and 15 to intercept the unknown vessel. Destroy it before it reaches our position." 3 of his dreadnoughts broke formation and accelerated toward the approaching ship. Each was a massive warship capable of destroying entire planetary defense fleets. Their plasma cannons could punch holes through asteroid belts, and their shields could resist almost any weapon. The unknown ship detected the approaching hegemony vessels but did not change course. If anything, it seemed to accelerate even faster. The energy readings from its engines climbed to levels that should have been impossible for any known technology. "Admiral," his sensor operator called out with a trembling voice. "The unknown ship's hull is beginning to glow. Energy levels are climbing beyond our measurement capabilities. I have never seen anything like this." Vextar studied the display with growing unease. The approaching vessel was small compared to his dreadnoughts, but something about it made his combat instincts scream warnings. It moved like a living predator, and its energy signature was unlike anything in his experience. On Cathara Station, The research team watched their sensors with growing amazement. The unknown ship was not only refusing to slow down, but it was actually speeding up as it approached the hegemony intercept force. "That is suicide," Lyrics whispered. "One ship against 3 dreadnoughts. They will be destroyed instantly." But Commander Zephyrs was not so sure. Something about this situation felt different. The unknown ship's approach was too confident, too direct. Either its crew was completely insane, or they knew something that nobody else did. "Keep monitoring all frequencies," she ordered, "and prepare to record everything. If this unknown species is willing to die trying to help us, the least we can do is make sure their sacrifice is remembered." The 3 hegemony dreadnoughts closed to weapons range and opened fire. Plasma beams capable of melting mountains lanced out toward the small unknown ship. For a moment, space was filled with deadly energy as the hegemony vessels unleashed their full firepower. When the plasma cleared, everyone expected to see empty space where the unknown ship had been. No vessel that small could survive such concentrated fire from 3 dreadnoughts. It was simply impossible. But the unknown ship was still there. Not only was it still there, but it appeared to be completely undamaged. And now it was firing back. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for decades to come. The unknown ship's weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of plasma or laser beams, they fired some kind of concentrated energy that seemed to ignore the hegemony shields entirely. The lead dreadnought simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a massive warship with a crew of thousands. The next moment, there was only an expanding cloud of superheated gas and metal debris. Admiral Vexstar stared at his tactical display in shock. One of his dreadnoughts had been completely destroyed in a single shot. That was not possible. Dreadnought armor and shields were designed to withstand sustained bombardment from entire fleets. "Report," he shouted. "Unknown, Admiral." The enemy weapon appeared to be some kind of focused particle beam, but the energy levels required should have torn their own ship apart. "I cannot explain how they generated such power." The unknown ship was already pursuing the 2nd dreadnought, which was now trying desperately to escape. But the mysterious vessel was faster, much faster, and its next shot carved the fleeing warship in half. The 3rd dreadnought turned and fled toward the main hegemony formation, broadcasting desperate warnings about the impossible enemy they had encountered. "Admiral," Vexstar felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest: fear. The human warship Retribution dropped out of hyperspace with all the grace of a falling meteor. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge, her scarred hands gripping the command rail as she studied the tactical display. 12 hegemony dreadnoughts surrounded a small research station, and plasma fire was already tearing into the civilian structure. "Analysis. Cortez," she barked at her tactical officer. "Standard hegemony raid pattern, Captain. They are bombarding the station to force surrender. Typical slaver tactics." Elena's jaw tightened. She had been hunting hegemony raiding parties for 6 months. Ever since they had attacked the human colony on New Perth, the colonists there had been peaceful farmers, just like the researchers on that station. The hegemony had enslaved the survivors and burned everything else. "Power up all weapon systems," she ordered, "and get me a communication link to both the station and the enemy fleet." The Retribution was humanity's first deep space warship, built using technology reverse-engineered from a crashed alien scout ship found on Mars. Human engineers had taken the basic designs and improved them in ways that made most alien species uncomfortable. Where other races built ships for exploration or trade, humans built them for war. The ship's reactor ran at temperatures that would have terrified any sane engineer. Its weapons drew power directly from controlled microsingularities that existed on the edge of physics. and its artificial intelligence had been programmed with tactical data from every major war in human history. "Captain," Communications Officer Park reported, "3 enemy dreadnoughts are moving to intercept us. They will be in weapons range in 4 minutes." "Perfect," Elena said with a cold smile. "Let them come." The 3 hegemony ships opened fire as soon as they were in range. Plasma beams that could melt asteroids lanced out toward the much smaller human vessel. The bridge crew braced for impact, but Elena stood perfectly still. The Retribution's kinetic barriers absorbed the plasma bursts like they were raindrops. The ship's revolutionary defense system used controlled gravitational fields to deflect incoming energy. It was technology that human physicists had developed after studying the wreckage on Mars for 20 years. "Return fire," Elena ordered. The Retribution's main weapon was something no other species had ever built. A particle beam powered by controlled matter-antimatter annihilation. When it fired, space itself seemed to bend around the energy beam. The lead hegemony dreadnought was struck center mass and simply disappeared. No explosion, no debris field. Just gone. On the bridge of Admiral Vextar's flagship, alarm sirens were screaming. The tactical officer stared at his display in disbelief. "Admiral, the lead intercept vessel has been destroyed. Complete molecular destruction. I have never seen a weapon with that kind of power." Vextar felt his compound eyes widen with shock. That dreadnought had carried a crew of 3,000 veteran warriors. It had armor thick enough to resist orbital bombardment and shields that could deflect comet impacts. And it had been erased from existence by a single shot from a ship 1/3 its size. What kind of species builds weapons like that? He whispered. The second hegemony dreadnought tried to flee, but the human ship was faster. Much faster. Its engines used controlled fusion reactions that pushed it to speeds that should have torn any normal hull apart. But human engineering was not normal. It was designed by a species that had learned to fight. Wars in the vacuum of space while their homeworld was still learning to fly. The Retribution caught the fleeing dreadnought and cut it in half with a sustained particle beam. The 3rd enemy ship turned and ran toward the main fleet, broadcasting warnings about the impossible alien vessel that had destroyed 2 dreadnoughts. In under 5 minutes, Elena opened a communication channel to both the station and the hegemony fleet. Her image appeared on screens. Across both locations, a battle-scarred human female, with cold blue eyes and the kind of smile that predators wore when they found prey. I am Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran Colonial Navy," she said in fluent hegemony battle cant, a language she had learned during months of interrogating captured raiders. "Admiral Vextar, you will withdraw from this system immediately, or I will demonstrate why humans earned our reputation during the Sol campaign." On Kithara Station, Commander Zephyr stared at the image on her screen with amazement. The unknown species was bipedal, like many others in the galaxy, but there was something different about them. Their eyes faced forward like a predator's, and their facial expressions showed emotions that were both familiar and terrifying. "Humans," Lyrics whispered, testing the unfamiliar word. "I have never heard of this species. They are not in any collective databases." Admiral Vextar was equally confused, but for different reasons. In his decades of conquest, he had never encountered a species that could destroy his ships so easily. The weapon technology alone was beyond anything the hegemony had ever seen. "What is Terra?" he demanded over the communication channel. "What is this Sol campaign you speak of?" Elena's smile grew wider and somehow more frightening. "Terra is our homeworld, Admiral. As for the Sol campaign, that was when we turned our own solar system into a fortress because we could not stop fighting each other long enough to explore space peacefully. We built orbital weapons platforms around every planet and armed them with nuclear weapons. We militarized asteroids and turned our moon into a weapons factory. We did this to ourselves, Admiral, because war is what humans do best. The hegemony admiral felt something cold crawl down his spine. A species that had militarized their entire home system before achieving interstellar flight? That was not just unusual, it was terrifying. Most species achieve space travel through cooperation and peaceful exploration. These humans had apparently achieved it through an arms race. "You are one ship against 9 dreadnoughts," Vextar snarled, trying to regain his composure. "Surrender now, and I will make your death quick." Elena's laugh was like ice breaking in a winter storm. "Admiral, I think you misunderstand the situation. You are not facing a ship. You are facing the concentrated military philosophy of an entire warrior species. We have spent our entire history learning how to kill each other more efficiently. Now we get to use those skills on someone who deserves it." She turned to her tactical officer. "Target their formation. Show them what human weapons can really do." The retribution accelerated directly toward the hegemony fleet. Instead of the cautious maneuvering that most species used in space combat, the human ship attacked like a rabid animal. It did not try to avoid enemy fire. Instead, it absorbed hits on its kinetic barriers while returning fire with weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. The human artificial intelligence had been programmed with tactical data from every major conflict in human history. It knew how Alexander had defeated the Persians, how Nelson had crushed the French fleet at Trafalgar, how Patton had broken the German lines in Europe. And it applied those lessons to 3-dimensional space combat with terrifying effectiveness. 2. More hegemony dreadnoughts died in the first minute of combat. Their shields collapsed under sustained particle beam fire, and their hulls were torn apart by weapons that drew power from the controlled annihilation of matter itself. Admiral Vextar watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by a single enemy vessel, and he finally understood what his species had encountered. These humans were not just another alien race. They were apex predators from a world where only the strongest survived, and they had brought their predator instincts to the stars. "All ships," he broadcast on the fleet frequency, his voice shaking with something that might have been fear. "Focus all fire on the human vessel. Destroy it before it destroys us all." But even as he gave the order, Vextar suspected it was already too late. The humans had not come to negotiate or to show mercy. They had come to hunt, and they were very good at it. The remaining 9 hegemony dreadnoughts formed a defensive wall and opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and missile launchers all focused on the single human ship that had already destroyed 3 of their fellows. Space lit up like a miniature star as concentrated firepower that could level continents struck the Retribution. Captain Elena Vasquez stood calmly on her bridge as the ship shook under the massive bombardment. Her kinetic barriers flared bright blue as they absorbed and redirected the incoming energy. Sparks flew from several control panels, and the lights flickered. But the hull remained intact. "Damage report?" she called out. "Kinetic barriers holding at 70%, reported her chief engineer. "Some minor power fluctuations, but all weapon systems are operational. These hegemony weapons are powerful, but they are designed for long-range bombardment, not concentrated ship-to-ship combat." Elena nodded. Human weapons had been designed for ship-to-ship combat because humans had been fighting each other in space for decades before they ever met another species. The crashed alien scout on Mars had given them faster-than-light travel, but they had already been warriors. "Return fire. Target their flagship first." The Retribution's weapons struck Admiral Vextar's command ship like the fist of an angry god. The massive dreadnought's shields collapsed instantly, and its armor began to glow white-hot under the sustained particle beam assault. Emergency alerts screened across the bridge as system after system failed. "Admiral," his tactical officer shouted over the noise, "forward sections are breached. We have lost main power to Deck 7 through 15. Hull temperature is approaching critical levels." Vextar gripped his command chair as another human weapon strike tore through his ship's armor like it was paper. He had fought hundreds of battles across dozens of star systems, but he had never faced anything like this. The human ship moved like a living predator, anticipating his tactics and striking with surgical precision. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Their ship is smaller than ours. How can they generate so much firepower?" His science officer looked up from her instruments with terror in her compound eyes. "Admiral, I have been analyzing their weapon signatures. They appear to be using controlled matter-antimatter reactions for both propulsion and weapons. The energy densities they are achieving should be impossible without destroying their own ship." Vextar felt cold fear crawl through his body. Matter-antimatter reactions were theoretical weapons the most civilized species had rejected as too dangerous to build. The energy release from such reactions was so enormous that any accident would destroy not just the ship, but everything within several light minutes. Only a species completely insane would build weapons that could annihilate themselves if they malfunctioned. On the Retribution, Elena was studying the tactical display with the cold calculation of a born predator. The Gemini ships were powerful, but they fought like bullies who had never faced real opposition. Their formations were designed to intimidate weaker enemies, not to engage in actual combat with an equal opponent. "Cortez, analysis of their defensive patterns," she ordered. "Standard parade formation, Captain. They are trying to maximize their firepower, but they are leaving their flanks exposed. Classic mistake for a species that relies on overwhelming force instead of tactical flexibility." Elena smiled. It was the same mistake the Confederate Navy had made during the Luna War, and the Chinese Space Fleet had made during the Jupiter campaign. Overwhelming firepower was useless if you could not bring it to bear effectively. Execute attack pattern Sierra 7. Target their weak points and force them to break formation. The Retribution suddenly changed course, diving below the hegemony defensive line and striking at their most vulnerable ships. 2 more dreadnoughts exploded under concentrated fire before they could react to the new attack. Admiral Vextar watched his fleet being systematically dismantled and realized he was facing something beyond his experience. This was not just superior technology. This was superior tactics, superior training, and a warrior mindset that his species had never encountered. "Send a message to Hegemony High Command," he ordered his communications officer. "Tell them we have encountered a new species. Humans from a world called Terra. They are." He paused, searching for words to describe what he was witnessing. "They are apex predators. They fight like they were born for war." The communications officer tried to send the message, but the human ship's jamming was too powerful. The Retribution was not just attacking their ships. It was cutting off their communications and isolating them from any possible reinforcement. Elena opened another channel to the Hegemony fleet. Her face appeared on their screens again, but this time her expression was even more terrifying than before. She looked like death itself had taken human form. "Admiral Vextar," she said in perfect Hegemony battle cant, "I want you to understand something. My species spent 50,000 years learning how to kill each other. We turned warfare into an art form. We wrote books about it, studied it, perfected it. We built entire civilizations around the concept of organized violence." She gestured at the tactical display showing the burning wrecks of Hegemony dreadnoughts. "What you are experiencing now is not anger or hatred. This is simply what humans do. We are very good at breaking things that threaten innocent people. Vextar tried to respond, but another human weapon strike tore through his ship's command deck, killing half his bridge crew. Emergency power kicked in, and the lights dimmed as his flagship struggled to stay functional. "You want to know why we are so effective?" Elena continued, her voice calm despite the destruction she was causing. "Because we learned to fight wars where surrender meant extinction. We learned to build weapons that could destroy our own cities. Because sometimes that was the only way to stop our enemies from destroying them first." Another hegemony dreadnought exploded as the Retribution's particle beams found its reactor core. The ship came apart in a brilliant flash that briefly outshone the system star. "Your species fights wars to expand territory and capture slaves," Elena said. "My species fights wars to completely destroy threats to our survival. We do not take prisoners when we are defending innocent people. We do not show mercy to slavers and murderers." The tactical display showed only 4 hegemony dreadnoughts still fighting. The others were either destroyed or crippled beyond repair. In less than 20 minutes, a single human ship had reduced a fleet that could conquer star systems into burning wreckage. Admiral Vextar realized with growing horror that his species had encountered something new in the galaxy. Something that made the hegemony's reputation for brutality look like a child's tantrum. These humans were not just warriors. They were the kind of predators that other predators had nightmares about. "Admiral," his tactical officer called out desperately, "our weapons are having no effect. Their defensive systems are absorbing everything we can throw at them. We cannot win this battle." For the first time in his military career, Admiral Vextar gave an order he had never thought he would need to give. "All ships," he broadcast on the fleet frequency, "prepare to retreat. We are withdrawing from this system immediately." But even as he gave the order, he wondered if the humans would let them leave alive. After all, if their positions had been reversed, the hegemony would never have shown such mercy. Elena Vasquez watched the surviving hegemony ships begin to turn away from Cathar Station, and she made a decision that would echo throughout the galaxy for decades to come. She let them go, not out of mercy, but because she wanted them to spread the word. The galaxy needed to know that Terra had arrived, and that humanity was very good at protecting innocent people from predators like the hegemony. "Let them retreat," she ordered, "but target their engines if they try to turn back toward the station." The message was clear. Run and live to tell others what you have seen, but threaten innocent people again and face the consequences. Admiral Vextar's surviving ships limped away from Cathar Station, their hulls scarred and their crews shaken by the impossible defeat they had suffered. As they reached the edge of the system, emergency broadcasts filled hegemony communication networks with warnings about the new threat they had encountered. The humans had let them go, but the message was clear. Any hegemony force that threatened innocent civilians would face the same devastating response. In the space of 30 minutes, a single human warship had destroyed 7 dreadnoughts and sent the rest fleeing in terror. On Cathar Station, Commander Zephyrs watched through the observation deck as the sleek human ship approached their docking bay. The Retribution was smaller than she had expected, but there was something about its design that made her nervous. It looked like a predator, all smooth lines and hidden weapons. "They are requesting permission to dock," Communications Officer Lyrics reported. "The transmission is in perfect galactic standard now. How did they learn our language so quickly?" "I do not know," Zephyrs replied. "But after what we just witnessed, I am not going to question their capabilities." The docking procedure took longer than usual because the human ship's dimensions did not match standard collective specifications. It had been built for war, not peaceful trade, and every line of its hull reflected that purpose. When the airlock finally opened, Commander Zephyrs was waiting with her senior staff to greet their rescuers. What emerged from the human ship was unlike anything in her experience. Captain Elena Vasquez stepped onto the station wearing a dark blue uniform, marked with symbols that had no meaning to the collective species. She was tall by their standards, with forward-facing eyes that marked her as a predator species. When she smiled, her exposed teeth sent instinctive shivers of fear through the watching researchers. "Commander Zephy's," Elena said in accented but clear galactic standard. "I am Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran Colonial Navy. My apologies for the delay in introductions. We were dealing with your pest problem." Zephy's felt her crystalline body flicker with nervous energy. Up close, the human was even more intimidating. Her movements were controlled and precise, like a hunter stalking prey. Her eyes constantly scanned the area, noting exits and potential threats with automatic efficiency. "Captain Vasquez, on behalf of Cthulhu Station and the Galactic Collective, I thank you for your assistance. How did you know we were in danger?" "We have been tracking hegemony raiding parties for several months," Elena replied. "When we detected their fleet moving toward this system, we came to investigate. The hegemony has a habit of attacking civilian targets, and my government does not approve of such behavior." Behind Elena, two more humans emerged from the docking tube. They carried weapons that looked far too advanced for any species the collective had encountered. Like their captain, they moved with the fluid grace of natural predators. "Your government?" Zephy's asked. "Forgive me, Captain, but we have no record of humanity in any of our databases. Where is Terra located?" Elena's smile grew slightly wider, showing more of her teeth. "Terra is located in what you call the local arm, about 50 light years from here. We are a relatively young species in terms of interstellar travel. We only achieved faster-than-light capability 18 months ago." The station's senior staff exchanged shocked glances. 80 months? That was impossible. The technology they had witnessed required decades of development and testing. No species could build warships like the Retribution so quickly after achieving interstellar flight. "How did you develop such advanced weapons so quickly?" asked Dr. Thane, the station's chief scientist. Alana's expression became more serious. "We did not develop them quickly, Doctor. We have been building weapons for thousands of years. When we found the crashed scout ship on our fourth planet, we learned how to travel between stars. But we already knew how to fight wars." She gestured toward the tactical display, which still showed the debris field from the destroyed hegemony dreadnoughts. "Those weapons are based on principles my species discovered decades ago. We simply learned how to build them in space instead of on planetary surfaces." Commander Zephy's felt a chill run through her crystalline matrix. A species that had developed such weapons before achieving interstellar travel? That suggested a level of militarization that was almost incomprehensible to peaceful collective species. "Captain, may I ask why your species developed such powerful weapons?" Elena's laugh was short and bitter. "Because we spend most of our history trying to kill each other, Commander. We built weapons capable of destroying our own cities because sometimes our enemies tried to hide among innocent civilians. We learned to fight wars in the vacuum of space because we ran out of room to fight on our planet's surface." She walked to the observation window and looked out at the star field. "Terra has been at war with itself for most of recorded history. We built orbital weapons platforms and armed space stations because we could not trust each other to keep conflicts planet-side. By the time we found the crashed scout ship, we had already militarized our entire solar system." The station staff listened in stunned silence. The idea of a species that had militarized space before achieving interstellar travel was beyond their understanding. Most collective species had achieved spaceflight through cooperation and peaceful exploration. But now you travel between stars to help other species? Dr. Thane asked hopefully. "Sometimes," Elena replied. "When we find situations like this one." The hegemony attacked a civilian research station. That is unacceptable to my government. Slavery and genocide are unacceptable. So we hunt down the raiders and show them the consequences of their actions. She turned back to face the assembled researchers. But you should understand something, Commander. Terra is not like the collective. We are not explorers or traders or peaceful scientists. We are warriors who have learned to point our weapons away from each other and toward those who threaten innocent people. Communications Officer Lyrics cleared his throat nervously. Captain, what does Terra want from the collective? Are you seeking trade agreements or territorial concessions? Elena shook her head. We want very little, Officer Lyrics. We want to know where the hegemony bases are located so we can hunt them more effectively. We want to know which species in the galaxy are peaceful and which are threats to innocent people. And we want to establish communication networks so that we can respond quickly when situations like this arise. That is all? Commander Zephyrs asked. That is all. Terra has no interest in conquest or expansion. We have plenty of resources in our own system, and we are not traders by nature. But we are very good at protecting people who cannot protect themselves. Elena walked back toward the docking tube, her escort following with the same predatory grace. Commander, my ship's computer has downloaded star charts and communication protocols from your databases. In return, I have left you technical specifications for subspace transmitters that can punch through hegemony jamming. If you ever face another attack like this, use them to call for help. As the humans prepared to leave, Commander Zephyrs felt compelled to ask one more question. Captain, what if the hegemony returns with a larger fleet? What if they decide that Terra itself is a threat that must be eliminated? Elena paused at the airlock entrance and looked back with that predator smile. Commander, the hegemony is welcome to try. But they should understand that what they encountered today was a single scout ship. Terra has been building warships for longer than your species has had spaceflight. If the hegemony wants a real war, we will give them one they will never forget. The human captain and her crew disappeared into their ship, and the docking tube retracted. Within minutes, the retribution was accelerating away from the station, heading toward the outer system, where hegemony distress signals indicated other potential targets. Commander. Zephyrs watched the human ship disappear among the stars and tried to process what had just happened. The galaxy had fundamentally changed. The collective now had a protector, but that protector was a species that viewed warfare as a tool for solving problems. Send a priority message to Collective High Command, she ordered Lyrics. Tell them we have made first contact with a new species called humans. Tell them that the hegemony expansion into this sector has been stopped, possibly permanently. She paused, trying to find words to describe what she had witnessed. And tell them that the galaxy now has apex predators who consider protecting innocent people to be their natural duty. As Cathara Station began the long process of repairing the damage from the hegemony attack, news of humanity's arrival spread throughout the collective communication networks. Some species welcomed the news of a powerful protector. Others were terrified by the implications. But in the dark reaches of space, where hegemony raiding fleets